Recording.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. August 19th. We'll call, please.
Dick Pufall,
Here.
Mike Berlin,
Here.
Gary Mertig,
Here.
Bill Metzinger,
Here.
Marty Vitek.
Here. Need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Motion by Bill, seconded by Marty. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Any comments?
You guys are in trouble now.
Good morning, everyone. David Meany, District Attorney. I'm here, I think, to make what's really a rather simple request, and that is if.
Could Dave come up to a microphone? He's very broken.
Okay, let me move over to Clark's.
Thank you.
Is that better for the mic?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay. As I mentioned, I'm here to make a simple request, and it is based on what appears to have happened up to this point regarding salary requests for the upcoming budget. And what I'm asking for is that if the board or the finance committee or the executive committee is going to consider salary increases above and beyond the 2% that we were informed was going to be included in the budget, that you set up a reasonable process so that all departments can participate in requests for increases above the 2%. From what I understand, what has happened up to this point is not fair to many employees in the county, and is not reasonable because it doesn't seem that there's any process either for submissions for increases above the 2% or for how those submissions are going to be considered by any of the committees of the board as a whole. So what I understand happened was that earlier this week, the Finance Committee was presented with a wide range from a number of departments for increases above and beyond the 2%. Speaking from my perspective with the District Attorney's Office, when I received the budget materials, I believe the general understanding was that we were budgeting for a 2% increase, and I did not put in anything more, though I believe the staff in my office, we worked right through the pandemic. I don't want to make any comparisons, outside of a formal process, but I believe our staff is deserving of an increase above 2% based on their responsibilities to their performance. So when I got word of the presentations to the Finance Committee, and again, I'm not making any comments on what other departments came in and asked, my reaction was that you need a process. That is not fair to just on an ad hoc basis, consider requests coming in without any specification of, what should be presented to support a request above the 2%. So, that is essentially it. So I think the first decision that you have is, are you going to consider requests above 2%? And if you are, please set up a process so that everyone who wants to make, every department that wants to make a request has the opportunity to do that. And the process should include what showing you think should be made to support, an additional request above the 2%. So glad to take any questions, but I wanted to come down after I got word of how this was playing out. I wanted to come down and raise this issue for you. So if you are going to have, if you are going to consider raises above the 2%, and that's, as I understand it, would either be as a budget process based on the normal budget revenue and expenditures, and whether it's an increase in base level or one time, or whether it's going to be a separate consideration of using ARPA funds to make one-time or two-time grants without increasing base salary levels. Regardless of the how that's going to happen, if you are going to consider above the 2%, let's set up a process. We will participate in that, and you then consider our submission along with any other submissions as a whole, based on the factors that you've set out. So, any questions? Be glad to take it.
Well, I from the time this started, I was thinking that the first place that we should consider bonus or whatever you want to call it, or keeping that open right through the COVID thing. That's what it's designed for. Yeah, we'll take care of that.
Okay. And again, if you get that some notice to all the departments as to how these requests should be formulated and how you're going to consider them, what factors, we will be glad to get something in.
Okay.
I think there's plenty of time still to do that. I just didn't want this train to leave the station without raising this issue.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
so much. Next.
Could I,
Public comments?
yes, even though I'm the lieutenant of the jail, after hearing, this is Kim Lavasser from Ashland County. After hearing David Meady speak, we did put in for higher than 2%. And that was based on the fact that we haven't had raises in a few years. So why shouldn't we get more since we haven't had anything in a while? That has nothing to do with the pandemic. It has to do with the fact that we haven't gotten raises. We've been on a hiring freeze. We've been working our butts off there. And I think we deserve more money. Nothing to do with the pandemic. As far as the pandemic goes, that's what the ARPA funds are for. And I believe the money there should be laid out differently than any raises, because the raises is what you're going to get to help with your insurance costs and everything else that's gone up over the years that we didn't get raises to help with. We've had to pay more insurance. We've had to pay more co-pays. We've had to pay more for childcare. We've had to pay more gas and food, and we haven't had any raises to help cover that. So why shouldn't we have gotten raises? And now I think we should get more to help with that. And since we were all essential workers right there in the faces, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we couldn't work from home. Why shouldn't we get a bonus, basically, the ARPA funds to help out with that? So I think a raise, an increase, and the ARPA funds should have nothing to do with each other. That they're totally separate. So that's my only comment on that. Anybody have any questions on that?
But you're worth a lot more money than we're getting.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I know we're part of a wage comparison.
Yeah.
And you're right. Same with our kitchen workers. We're trying to get kitchen staff $12.75 an hour. They make more at McDonald's than our part-time kitchen workers, but
They're starting at $14.
yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I see the sign when I was in line.
Yeah.
The burger just got smaller.
Yeah. Thanks, Patty. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, hearing none. Thanks. Approval of the executive meeting minutes for July 23rd. We need a motion.
I'll move there.
Okay, motion by Mike,
I'll second it.
second by Bill. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye. Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. ARPA uses and, oh, wait a minute, now we have 4A. Terrace office building water line inspection.
Yep, so in your packet, you'll see an inspection for non-compliance for a backflow preventer on the water system over at the jail. And basically, this is, it's my understanding from my experience being a city administrator, is that the backflow stop loss preventers stop if you have a water failure or a pressure failure in one part of the city from water being sucked out of a building and into the regular water supply. It stops the back water from flowing into that, and it's a public safety issue. And commercial buildings and buildings with over, based on your code, based on certain sizes of diameter of water feeds, are required to have this. And so we are in non-compliance with this. In your packet, you'll see a bid from Superior Plumbing and Mechanical for the bypass booster pump valves of $5,800 and replacement of faulty main controller of $2,800. We would be taking this out of the jail assessment fee. So if you remember, those of you who have attended or watched a finance committee, you'll notice on the investment report, when we show you all the different passbooks, in one of those passbooks is a separate account with, I don't know, $100,000, $120,000, something like that. That jail assessment is by state law to be utilized for basically capital improvements for a jail. And so this is perfectly aligned with that. And with that, Kim is here and Raul to speak if you have any questions about it.
Did the finance committee look at this?
No. This just
Did
came
the-
up, this
did
just
the-
came up yesterday, actually. And this is kind of an emergency issue. And so we wanted to bring it at least to a committee.
Okay, so the sheriff and the sheriff's committee hasn't looked at that then?
Like I said, this just came up yesterday. And so this is an emergency issue that we want to jump on because we're out of violation.
How much is the violation cost? What's
$5,800.
no, how much do we have to pay for being in violation? Is there a fee?
Nothing to get fixed within their time. So if we get it fixed before our window for fixing it from the time it's on for inspection, we don't have to pay anything about it.
When is that going to be?
It was actually on June 8th. We did get an extension. The extension is through tomorrow. We did request another extension because we were not able to get these bids until yesterday. And so it's one more month.
So we just need a motion to take this out of the assessment fund?
Yep, make a motion to approve this out of the, and pay for it out of the jail assessment fund.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
How much is it for? And who made the motion?
Marty, need that in the motion.
Bill seconded it.
And how
And
much is,
It's for what's in the packet, which is I've not added it up. I'm assuming
5,800 and 2,900.
2760.
Yeah, question.
so 5,800 plus the 2,820 plus the 2,760. Whatever that equals.
well, we should have that dollar amount in the motion.
Do you have a calculator?
2760, 2820, and 5,800. All three dollar amounts come to 11,380.
Question.
You have a question there?
No, I was wondering if you put this up to bid and let's see you got a couple. Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this repair. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Right, so go ahead and then code that repair to the jail assessment fee account. And if you need that, Sue can get that to you.
Thank you.
All right.
ARPA uses and approvals. Evergreen Learning Center request.
So in here, under this agenda item, we have basically three separate ARPA approval requests. The first request comes from Evergreen Learning Center, and the board of directors, the president or the chair of the board for that organization is Carver, and he is here to talk about a request for $151,000 from ARPA funds. I did review the NACO. I didn't put this in the packet because you guys have seen this many times before, but overview of American counties, U.S. Treasury interim final rules and guidance is 26 pages. I did review that. In my opinion, if the committee wanted to expend this dollars, it would be allowed under the Treasury guidance. And with that, Carver is here if you'd like to make a presentation on this. Why don't you pull that chair up here between these two guys so you're closer to the table here.
Well, first of all, I don't envy you guys' jobs these days. I know you're getting a lot of requests coming at you. Appreciate you making time for me today. I did put a letter in the packet, and I don't know if you've had a chance to review it, but today I'm coming to you, I'm wearing two hats. I'm the executive director at Ashland Area Development. So I have a vested interest, of course, in the economic development. What, of course, our business owners are needing right now. But I'm also the chair of the Evergreen Learning Center Board of Directors. And that's the primary hat that I'm wearing today. Just a little bit of background about the center and its importance. In 2007 in Ashland County, we had 70 daycare providers. In 2021, we only have 30. Moved down from 70 to 30. And of those 30, 21 are licensed and 9 are certified. Those are numbers from Laura Harnish from Health and Human Services. We'd known for quite a while that we were short on child care providers in Ashland County. We did a survey in, I believe it was 2015, 2016, to get the numbers throughout the county, the needs. We surveyed all the employers to see what was needed. ABC had been working on this for years, trying to get a child care center up and running. After that needs assessment, which showed us not only did we have a dire need for child care providers, but how it was affecting some of our larger employers like MMC, Reading, their difficulty in being able to recruit young professionals to this area who were ready to start their families, but when they would find out that they moved to the Ashland area, they might not be able to get the child care that they needed. And we were losing them to Rochester, Duluth, and to other places. It further underlined the challenge that we would be having. So Ashland Area Development Corporation partnered with Northwest Wisconsin Workforce Investment Board, headed by Mara Kate and Buzz. And we worked for several years on launching this very large child care center. We got financial support from the city of Ashland, from Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, many grants, many donations, and then we also took out a very big loan. We launched the Evergreen Learning Center in November 2019. So 4 months before we were shut down. Not the center was shut down, but Northwest Wisconsin went into such kind of dire consequences. That child care center has a capacity to enroll 94 children, aged 6 weeks to 12 years. We designed it so that 50% of the children enrolled there, at least 50% would come from lower income homes. And we wanted to do the same thing with the staff. We wanted to hire people from the lower income brackets. One of the reasons that we wanted to provide this care for the lower income folks was that many child care providers do not accept Wisconsin Shares. Wisconsin Shares is the program that pays for their lower income parents' child care. So if there's childcare providers that don't accept Wisconsin shares, those lower income families can't use those childcare providers. So we wanted to make sure that we covered that base too. So essentially, by designing a center that was focused on some of the lower income families and doing some other adjustments like opening early, opening later, offering scholarships for people that couldn't even afford the basic registration fees. We've allowed parents to enter the workforce, attend classes at WITC, Northland College, or even at the high school. One of the other things that we do is we allow drop-in care. So typically when you are enrolled at a child care facility, you enroll for the whole week. We allow children that are enrolled to only come for certain hours during the week. So if their parent is like in a recovery program, a treatment program, and they only have to go 2 hours a day or 4 hours a day, they don't have to pay for that 40 hours a week. They can come in just for the hours that they need to come in. So you can see that we designed this to be as flexible as possible. We had a good, and we still have a good business plan and operations model. We did not account for what COVID was going to do. We have stayed open the entire time through COVID. Our enrollment dropped down to 5 at one point, from 94 to 5, but we stayed open. Our enrollment came back up again until the staffing issues hit us. That is our biggest problem right now. And of course, when we have a staffing issue, if we have a teacher who doesn't come in for a day, that means we have to send, if we close a classroom, 10 to 20 children home that day, which means that 10 to 20 parents in the area can't go to work. And it affects 10 to 20 employers who are already struggling with staffing issues. So it has this negative reverberation throughout our business community. I know you guys understand how impactful that can be in our circumstances right now throughout the county. So that's when I put on my ABC hat and say, this is really, really important that we pay attention to childcare and not just the Evergreen Learning Center, although that's what I'm here to talk about today, how dire it is moving forward. Yes, sir.
Are you a nonprofit?
We are a nonprofit. We are a nonprofit.
So how many people do you have working there now?
You know, we were
It
in,
varies.
it really does. I mean, we have people coming and going quite a bit. Right now, what we've had to do for the month of August is we've had to close our classrooms on Fridays. And we've also had to close 3 of our 6 classrooms. We were hoping to open up again in September, and that's what we told our parents that we were shooting for. But as of yesterday, I don't have enough staff to open up any of those 3 closed classrooms. We're in interviews this week, but we go week to week, sometimes day to day, to see what we can open and close. Yeah, so my request is for 151,000, and I didn't pull that out of the air. That was working with our treasurer, who is Andy Donahue, who's the center director for the Small Business Development Center out of UW Superior. He's the treasurer on our board. He's also the go-to person for pro formas. He's our financial expert. The $151,000 represents the lost revenue from now until the end of the year if we have to keep those 3 classrooms closed. I don't know if I'm going to be able to open some classrooms. I don't know if I'm going to have to close some classrooms. I don't know what Delta is going to do to the situation. I don't know what's going to happen at the school system, because we'd also serve school-age children after school. So I'm going to put this in a nutshell. The $151,000 is to give the county some insurance that in January of 2022, we still have a child care center open. to serve our parents in there. That's it in a nutshell. Let me add just a few more things, please. I also would be remiss if I didn't say, I don't know what other funding might be coming down the road for childcare. I know Governor Evers has announced the Workforce Innovation Revitalization Program, and there's going to be more details coming out in the coming weeks. It's quite possible that there'll be some money in there for childcare. Hopefully, it would get to a center like ours. It would not just be for the metropolitan areas. That's my hope, that it'll get to a facility like ours. And I'm going to be pulling on lots of other strings too, looking for money to help keep it open. That is my goal. Keep it open, because if we close this center, I really doubt that we're ever going to be able to open one again. This was years of planning and fundraising to get to this point. And Madison was looking at Ashland as a successful model. And Mara K. Nabuzny was asked many times to help show other communities how to do it successfully. We have a good model. It's COVID that is creating this situation. Thank you. So I'm sorry.
Next question.
Yes, sir.
When your attendance was cut down so drastically, did you lay people off then?
Yes.
Is there any assurance that you had the money that they will come back?
This money is going to be used to make sure we can pay our bills. Because every month we have a loan payment to pay, because we remodeled that entire building in order to meet all of the legislation, all the requirements for opening childcare, and to pay our rent, because that's not our building.
So none of this would be used for wages.
Yes, it'll be included in the wages that we need. Yes. This is the lost revenue from not having those 3 classrooms there. And if we have that revenue back in the system and we can hire people, we certainly will. But yes, it will be used to help pay for wages of people that are there now. If we can keep those 3 classrooms open.
It's my understanding that according to the state statutes, that you have to have so many instructors on staff. You do. According to how many people you have.
That's correct.
Right?
So for instance, in our 2-year-old classroom, we need to have a lead teacher who has to be trained and certified. And we have to have an assistant teacher who also has to go through the training and be approved. If the lead teacher doesn't show up that day, it's a 2-teacher classroom, the lead teacher doesn't show up, I can't open the classroom. I have to close that classroom, and then I've got that other person that could maybe move to another classroom or do some of the other work. Right now, I'm working on an interim center director, because the center director was hired by Ashland County a couple of weeks ago. She just started here, Carol Burrow. The assistant center director, I'm advertising for assistant center director, and I'm missing 3 to 4 lead teachers, depending on what happens this week. The problem there is not money. The problem there is I can't get the applicants right. If I increase the wages, perhaps I could compete with other employers. I don't know. I can't guarantee that.
Here's,
Does this have to go before the full board then?
Yes. Yep. So your policy and procedure is, and I'm actually trying to find this link I have, but it's on my downstairs computer, but $5,000 and less, I approve. $5,000 to $50,000, you approve. $50,000 and above, county board approves. So if you were to consider this, it will be before the county board on the 16th of September.
Isn't this a little bit different? That's not county money. It's government.
well, we're in charge of it.
Yeah, so that's what the county board decided, when this ARPA money came in May, we got $1.5 million. The county board said, how are we gonna figure this out? And that's why I'm trying to get my spreadsheet up here, but the issue is you have air filters, $200 air filters. We don't need to bring that to a committee to buy. And so everything that's $5,000 or less, I've been going through and purchasing on the ARPA funds and tracking it. Everything between 5 and 50 comes to you guys. And then between 50 and over goes to the full county board. You might remember in August 3rd at the county board meeting, you approved $1 million of basically for evidence-based behavioral health treatment programs that are court ordered out of HHS to be able to utilize for ARPA funds. And that was a county board decision. So in this case, the proper procedure for this would be for this request is for you to make a recommendation to the county board, one way or another.
How much money did you say we got? 2.5.
So you got 1.5 in May, you're gonna get another 1.5 next May.
But you've already allocated the 1.5 million for HAs, or
Right.
human services. Here's my concern, and here's what we have talked about. We're gonna get requests from dozens of really good areas to spend money. We need to have that chart set up to say, if we give a daycare center X amount of dollars, take it off the list because that money's no longer there. And then the next person comes along, just like we heard from the DA, all of a sudden, somebody says, oh, you missed me. So I go back to, and I think Clark mentioned it early on, we get a list of all the requests and we prioritize them. What's the biggest bang for our buck? No offense to childcare, but the state of Wisconsin screwed childcare up years ago. It used to be Dick had a child and his sister watched them. And I had a child and my brother watched them. And the state came along with this fabulous, I worked for the state and the county here both. The state came along and said, well, we gotta have all these certified, licensed people. And it took all the moms, dads, uncles, aunts, cousins out of the picture. We lost all those people who used to watch your kids and your kids. And now they all gotta go to a licensed daycare with a star system and everything else. We screwed the system. Not your fault, not mine, but the state. So now we have this problem where nobody can keep employees because you can go anywhere and make money. So I know childcare is very important, but I think what we need to do is put that on the list and say as a county board, this is very important to the county and the economic development, and say, this ranks right here, they should get it or not. And somebody else, because we're starting to see it already. We got dozens of people coming to look for that money. And if $1.5 million is gone, basically, for health and human services, now we're down to $1.5 million. What else is on our list? And if you guys are important, and you are, then as a county board, we should say they're more important than Gary getting some money to go dig clams or something. You know, but that's what we're gonna be faced with, because we already saw it this morning, the jail, the DA, everybody wants a chunk of it. And I'm not saying that any of it's bad, but I think we need to have the list to say, this is important for the county. They should get first shot at it. Because pretty soon we're gonna be in October and they've spent all the money.
Oh, childcare on a larger scale in the city has been around for years and years and years. We never realized it here. But if you got Verdes expanding, MMC expanding like crazy, I know exactly what you're talking about. Guys, come in, I want to know what's going to be offered. You know, what's the package? And that's very important. They don't know the school system. They want to know childcare so that if they can afford to come here and work.
Right.
And it never was as important as it is now, I don't think.
And I think a presentation like you're giving us, the county board would say, hey, this ranks pretty high. But I don't want to have somebody else come back in tomorrow, because we've already had 3 requests technically, and say, well, what about me? And then we say, well, that's important to you.
I think what you're saying is true, because it's right, because it can't be the first people in the door, you know what I mean? And there has to be some sort of rational, what the DA would say, and there's some sort of rational procedure that we follow. But what if we award all the money and then something comes along, we can't do it?
But like, you said,
Everybody needs a fair shot.
yeah,
Could you get by with less?
I don't know how to answer that. The $151,000 was calculated specifically to the end of the year based on our current situation. And as I said, that just gives us some security knowing that we can pay our obligations till the end of the year. If we continue with 3 classrooms open. It could be that I can open a classroom at the end of September. It could be I have to close one. There's so many unknowns right now. All I could do is go on our current situation. If it remains the same through the end of the year, I know that I can meet my financial obligations and keep the center open and know that we'll have it in January 2022.
Any chance that you can renegotiate your contract with the Randy Gary Levine?
Yeah.
See, I don't know what you pay rent wise, but is that flexible at all, or I mean, under the circumstances?
I can't speak for Gary, but he has been incredibly helpful to us since the very start of these conversations about how to get something off the ground. And he has been, I think, as flexible and generous as you could expect a business person to be. There was a time when, when COVID first hit, that we were really concerned, and he allowed, we're now like 5 kids. He allowed us to not pay our rent for a couple of months.
Oh,
Yeah, he let us go, and then we caught back up with him. We repaid him when we got the children back up again. So he's been very flexible, but I think there's a limit to what we can expect him to do. He wants us to succeed. I mean, everybody wants us to succeed. And I know, I trust you all. I know that you've got some prioritizing to do and some triaging to do. And that's also why I said, we've got a lot of in-home providers right now. They have their own staff. It's them. But the bigger ones like Treetop, Little Friends of Jesus, some of those bigger places, they may have staffing issues right now. I don't doubt that they do. So you can expect that if you do this, you may have other people, other nonprofits saying, we need to keep the center open for the same reason Evergrove does. It's just that ours is the largest right now and would have the biggest impact. And there's no comparison. I'm not trying to say that we're more needy than any of these other places at all. I have a vested interest in making sure every child care provider in Ashland County is open for years to come. And we need to develop more. Because even with this new center that we have, as big as it is, we still have waiting lists.
Is that time to make a motion?
So before you do that, I apologize for being distracted for the last 15 minutes, but I was trying to find links between my 2 different accounts or 3 different accounts in the computers. This is the internal tracking sheet, which staff have put items on. And so far we basically had this is a wish list, as you well know. This has nothing to do with approvals. 2.8 million out of the 3. So when we look at this, on this sheet, you have, payments to essential unions in the sheriff's department. So basically the union did get in the sheriff's contract that was negotiated and approved by the county board, 2 payments in 22 and 23 of $1,250 each. That was a separate contract. $78,000 for the cameras and stuff in here. Some of these things like computer servers, crowd control equipment. Then we go to small items, touchless soap dispensers, a copier. The green things are things that we've approved and paid for. In here, I basically put in a place marker in for Office on Aging payments for 3 years, payments to the airport, county fair, AADC. So these are things that I would put out there because you're going to be very short. You're going to be very short on general levy dollars once we reallocate the $400,000 to $500,000 increase in healthcare that the finance committee voted on Tuesday. So that's gonna radically change what you have available.
Just a quick question. Just, and if it is, there is, that 35,000 from the forestry, will that be part of your group of transfer money that you're talking about, part of the airport and that?
I'm not add that in. That needs to come back to the finance committee to do that. I think in the finance committee, there's on the 35, what Gary is talking about. Right now, we give $35,000 of general levy dollars to the Chamber of Commerce. And that comes out of the Forest Department, Forest Committee recommendation. The finance, who approves the budget, is not as much in favor of that, so we could maybe move that to the ARPA funds. That'd be a decision on September 21st. So we got air filters, cameras, scanners, things to help with basically responding to the COVID and preparing in case you get another lockdown. Adobe electronic signatures, headset for the DA, Zoom accounts for Health and Human Services. Some of these things like electric pedestals for social distancing gathering in the courthouse lawn. You know, Mary from the chamber asked for that. Obviously, we haven't approved that or done anything with it. We're paying more for body transports for COVID because we're having to transport more bodies to get tested before they can be autopsy unobserved. That's an interesting one. iPads, here's your $1 million out-of-home placement. Here's a request from Carver. We're putting in for fiscal consultants for 21 and 22. We're thinking the body scanner. I wrote a $150,000 grant for body scanner from the jail. And we're thinking that's going to be more than $150,000. So I put in $15,000 from that. Forestry has asked for AEDs. And then we have, premium pay for county staff. Radio repeater tower move, which is on the agenda later. So yeah, so when you start talking about $3 million right here, you pretty much already have talked about it.
But the 150,000 or 151,000 is within that.
Yeah.
Gee, okay.
It's within that, yes.
So I think-
but the question is, when you get to the point, if you start talking about agenda item number 5 on here, and you start talking about, do you want to give ARPA funds to county workers who weren't laid off and who didn't have a pay cut?
Right.
The question is, do you want to allocate all your money today? And so.
All of a sudden, that windfall that we got from the government doesn't look like that big a deal. It'll take long to burn through that.
If you build it, they'll come. And that's the problem. That's why I like that list, because then we can go back over it and say, okay, that item over there is really important, but we can't afford it, or we don't have the money because we just gonna blow it. But I thought Mike was gonna make a motion.
Well, if it's time to make a motion, I would make a motion to bring this to the board, Polk County Board for review and approval.
Yeah, you need to have a motion then, so you're basically making a motion to approve it. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
So he's not pressed for time on this. We could move this to the county board.
I don't think you have a choice but take it to the county board according to the county board procedures.
I think there's a question of fairness here too, I think there probably are organizations who aren't even aware of this. That this money is available.
Let me just share this with the board. I plan on bringing this to the tribal council because these folks also serve Native American kids. So, yeah.
I'm not talking about the merit of, I'm talking about the fairness of the whole procedure.
Dick and Marty, you are going to have to talk more into the microphone because you keep breaking up.
Step forward, go ahead, reset.
I was going to say that my concern has nothing to do with the merit of the childcare facility. It has to do with the fairness of the process we're doing here.
Has this been brought up at the finance committee meeting that they had Tuesday?
Because county board tasked this committee more or less with those ARPA fund recommendations over $50,000. There is overlap. I mean, I'll say it one more time before I leave you. I think you should combine your finance and admin committees together because there's so much overlap. This wage issue we're gonna be talking about, that Dave talked about, that's a perfect example. You both have oversight. It's just, you know, it's just unworkable to have you two committees doing simultaneous work that may oppose each other.
Okay.
But that's my 2 cents. You guys can talk about that in April next year.
Don't stir the hell out of the pot.
So Mike's motion is to push this individual item to the full county board or the review of the whole list?
Well, I guess according to what Clark you just indicated, I'm approving his proposal to us.
Okay,
And by us approving the proposal, because of the amount, it would go to the county board.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That's a good summary of it. Basically, we have, like I said, we're making those green categories, those green items are under $5,000 each, or they've been approved by a governing body. And so that's why, you know, like this $1,500 iPad for basically confidential talks between an inmate and an attorney via Zoom. You know, those things I'm approving. And so if it's got green, it's got done, but the rest of that stuff has not been done. So I've not gone through and figured out what was already approved, but you got $1 million plus a bunch of other stuff in here. It's probably 1.2 million probably already. That's probably been, let's say, obligated.
So we've only got 1.5.
We've got 1.5. So that's actually an excellent point, Mr. Poofall. I should probably go through because from a cash flow standpoint, so some counties are just spending their entire allocation because they have $10 million in the bank and they don't have to worry about it. They're going to pay themselves back. We may have to be a little bit more concerned about cash. The question is, do we go over that 1.5 even though we don't have the money? That's, and well, actually, and like the high cost out of home placements, we're anticipating maybe $250,000 to $300,000 a year for 4 years. You know, we're not going to take $1 million out of the account today. So that is spread out. The issue we wanted to make a placeholder is when we start having these conversations and these asks, what have we promised ourselves?
But question for you, when do we get the other half?
May of 22. Unless,
Can we borrow against that?
I would not recommend you doing that.
You're talking about the federal government, they may renege it.
Yeah, and
That's why I want to get it now.
well, and Gary's point is exactly, which is, how do you deal with if the federal government changes it and you've obligated yourself? And Bill made you know, an interesting point, which is it fair, or maybe Marty made that point. Marty made the point. If you're going to consider nonprofit organizations, do you want to advertise that? Do you want to say, let's put everybody in the pool and write it like a grant program? I've not been an advocate of that myself because in the financial cash flow situation you're at, I think you should internalize as much money as you can in your organization in order to conserve cash because you are short on cash. But that's my philosophy. The board can do what they wish.
Bill?
Mike, I'd be in favor of your motion, but I'd like to amend it to say that it simply be, the executive committee goes ahead and approves this to be added to the list for distribution. So if we go through the list and we say, hey, we can't afford this, then we can take something out. You see what I mean? Rather than just say, no, we're not going to do it right now, but either that or put it back that we're not turning it down, we're adding it to the list.
But isn't it already on the list?
No,
Yeah.
Well, this list here is an internal list that is put out by staff. So it's an internal Ashland County list. It's not, I can't have this list be a public document because then every Joe is going to put something on there. So fact, if people are really smart, they're gonna copy.
We should get more money.
So-
I expected some kind of reaction on it.
I guess I don't want to see it turned down, but I'd like to see it added to the list and wait to see what we all get yet. You see what I'm saying?
Well, that's a different question. You know, that's, your question would be you would like to see a procedure to put out a notice to the public to say what places are struggling now on ARPA funding. This is an allowable use. It's allowable use to actually give money to people who were laid off. I mean, the ARPA funding is, you know, geared towards people who are laid off, people who are evicted from homes, people who are struggling in an economic sense. That's the main focus of this thing. And the question is, do you want to open up to, I mean, I just don't see, you know, some counties are going through and they're using it to pay for $100 for vaccination. Some people are giving people money for back rent that they lost, they have to pay back rent. They're giving it to that level. They're writing individual grants. Some of them are giving it to businesses that basically had to shut down for the pandemic to recoup their losses. So these are 3,300 counties all over the nation. And there's 3,300 different applications of these funds.
I have a question for you though. When federal government says for their situation, there's money available. Does that have to come out of the ARPA grant that we got, or will they fund that separately?
So if you follow the infrastructure bills from Congress, the Senate approved what I would call a hard infrastructure project, about $1 trillion, roads, bridges, dams, trains. Behind that is a $3.5 billion human capital infrastructure project that they're considering. In that project, actually, is a proposal that would raise and subsidize the minimum wage for childcare workers to $15 an hour. But you're putting a lot of eggs in a basket there to think that Congress is going to come through with that. I would not. So there are different avenues that they're trying to address this issue. I'm not aware of any other funds that he could apply for currently that would.
Well, why I'm asking that is because restaurants who had to shut down and lost thousands and thousands of dollars, they can apply for that money that they lost. Now, what's the difference with your organization? Why can't you do that?
Dick, you need to talk more into the microphone.
He basically was asking, you might remember there was a, I think, are you talking specifically of the PPP? Remember the PPP grant or loan process? Last year, is that what you're thinking about?
You might be referring to the restaurant revitalization
Okay,
program, or just restaurants got grant money.
yeah.
But that's geared towards other businesses too, not just, that might be a separate account, but other businesses have the right to do the same damn thing. So why couldn't your organization fight for?
So we have tapped into PPP. And we have got money from the Department of Children and Families from Wisconsin. That was really critical to staying open so far.
Here's my problem with this whole deal is that we assumed that we could use some of this federal dollars, like we talked about, to supplant some of our general fund dollars, because our budget is terrible. I don't know if we want to just keep spending all this money and then coming back 6 months from now and say, boy, we could have used $1,000 for this department or that department, whatever would have been legal. That's why I like the list. And then we're gonna have to go through the list and prioritize what's the biggest bang for a buck for the county. And
I, with both these guys here, I would like to see the totality of what our need or requests are for the whole company, yeah, and work from there.
So I think, Dick, you have to address the issue on the table that there's a motion, but no second
Do we
yet.
have a second to Mike's motion?
We don't have well, we have a motion at this point in time to approve his request. Bill has a friendly amendment to that motion if I was to. And I'm kind of unclear if we were to, if I was to amend that motion with a friendly amendment from Bill to approve this, to put it on the list. And by putting it on the list, that does not go to the county board
No.
on September 17th.
No,
It's
no.
just on.
This list is an internal, just Clark Schroeder, making sure we're not out too far ahead of our skis.
I guess what I wanted to say is I think this is a worthwhile thing to consider. And by just, if we said, no, we're not going to give it to you, you know, you're kind of done, but I think it's a worthwhile thing, but we gotta evaluate how much money we do have. So, you know, if you're okay with that, Mike? Or no?
I could amend my motion to the friendly amendment from Bill.
Then I would,
We have a motion on the table and an amendment.
What is the motion now?
I have no idea.
I know, I mean, Bill's restated here.
we're making a motion. Clarify if this is wrong, that we are in favor of putting it on the list until we can evaluate it down the road further, but we're not denying it now. So we're putting it on the list. Does that make sense?
It doesn't make, no offense, I mean, it doesn't make sense to me because it's already on a list. I think what you need to do is, do you want to address it at the county board level? And the county board could say yes, the county board could say no, but that the original motion was considered at the county board meeting. I mean, it's already on a list. I don't think that's I mean, we have all sorts of crazy things on this list too, though.
But I guess the thing is to get the executive committee's approval that it should be on that list
Not deny it.
and not deny it.
But if it's already on there.
Yeah, but who said, who puts what stuff is on there? I don't see it, yeah, but I don't see any 150 some thousand other 150 some $1,000 projects.
These are all internal staff, the people you hire to run the county, these are all their ideas. And I mean, I don't think it does anything to put it on the list. You're basically saying no. I think we need a definitive answer. Do you want it at the county board meeting to consider, yes or no?
That was my original motion,
Yeah, yeah.
was to approve Carver's request. And if that passes, second motion passes, then that would go to the county board for their approval.
Yeah, you have three choices. You could recommend the county board with you could put it to the county board with no recommendation. You could put it to the county board with a no recommendation. You could put it to the county board with a yes recommendation. Those, in my mind, to simplify it, those are your three choices for this request. If you don't want to weigh in on it, let the county board make the decision. If you want to weigh in on it, say yes or no.
So is your motion then to recommend?
My motion is to approve Carver's proposal.
Okay.
And by approving Carver's proposal, that would take it to the county board for their recommendation or for their decision.
With no recommendation from us.
Well, by us, Pat, taking it to them, that is the recommendation.
He's going with the decision, which is recommend yes to the county board. In simple terms.
Yes,
I'll second that motion.
Okay, then I'm gonna ask
Who made the second?
Dick did,
Dick,
and then Gary's requesting a roll call vote. And I'm gonna be real honest, I'm voting no, because I don't want the county board to feel that the executive committee in whatever shape was unanimous in saying this particular request is higher priority than anybody else on the request list or whomever. And so that's why I'm gonna vote no.
well, when this comes to, if and when this comes to the county board, Carver will be making the same presentation again to sell.
right? But every other organization that's out there that hasn't had that opportunity, we don't know where they rank on the list. This is very important, don't get me wrong. I support childcare. But I'm afraid that we're setting somebody in over, it, the DA had a perfect argument. He didn't know anything about all, everybody else asking for raise. So, yeah, are raises gone? Maybe. That's a whole other issue, but that's our problem. We haven't looked at the totality. We've already spent half the money technically. And I think we're spending money, we don't know where we want to put it yet. So let's put it on the list. If we start divvying out individual amounts, pretty soon Clark or Dan's gonna come along and say, well, sorry, guys, oh, 3 million's gone. But that's another day's topic. So there's a motion in a second, so.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. Want a roll call vote for this? Roll
Yeah.
call vote.
Okay, but only if you promise to keep talking into the microphone. Dick Poofall,
Yes.
Mike Berlin,
Yes.
Gary Mertig,
No.
Bill Metzinger,
No.
Marty Vitek,
No.
So it won't go to the county board on that motion.
No.
So the motion to recommend to the county board with a yes motion has been defeated. Now you are down to the two other choices, which is to basically forward to the county board with a no motion or forward to the county board with a recommendation.
No recommendation.
No recommendation. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So those are, so basically, you can make a motion forward to the county board with no recommendation. Let the county board decide, or you can basically, you can still forward it to the county board with a no recommendation. So those are your two choices at this point.
I kind of wish we would discuss the other things first too, because if who's asking for a raise and, you know, what other funds do we have to spend? You know, whether we take it to the county board, we take it, well, we don't know about this, we don't know about this, we don't know about this. You know,
We've gotten ahead of ourselves.
yeah, you know, I think it's a wonderful thing. I'm 100% in favor of it. But I'm just saying, in reality, how are we going to distribute this money fairly?
Well, I think then we should forward it to the full county board without recommendation. Otherwise, the people on the board that are gonna say, well,
Why didn't you do
really
this?
didn't want this, I'm not gonna vote for it. And that's not necessarily true. We wanna weigh the process, like you said, see what's out there and what's more important to.
I'm afraid if we make a recommendation to the county, or no recommendation, if we forward it to the county board with or without a recommendation, they're gonna think it's something they need to act on, and it's an important issue. And I'm afraid they're gonna act on it, and then we're already gonna start talking about this money here for raises. Well, where's that fall in line? I don't know. My concern is we should just leave it where it is and wait till we figure out where we're gonna spend the leftover money, because I think we're spending money we don't know that we have.
So when I talk to my fellow county administrators, and part of the, we're maybe in the middle of the pack as far as planning for this. And I think part of that is because I'm leaving and I've been really focused on trying to get a replacement, trying to find somebody to work with you. Some of the counties have gone through and Chippewa Falls fully allocated their entire $8 million. They said broadband is gonna go here, we're gonna do rent assistance here, we're gonna do technology enhancements here. So they basically know what they're gonna do for till 2026. Some counties haven't done anything. We're kind of in the middle of the pack. You made a policy of 550 and over 50. It wouldn't be a bad idea to have a you know, a county discussion about this without individual items up for consideration. Do you want to make categories and tranches of how you want to deal with this? I mean, tons of counties are doing broadband stuff. I don't even have that on the list. I've not had time to look into it.
I would be willing to make a motion to table this until we come up with a procedure that everybody. Until we have the list.
Marty, you were too broke up. You've got to talk into the microphone.
Okay. I say I would make a motion that we table this matter until we can come up with a procedure that's agreeable to everybody on the committee.
I'll second that. This is Gary.
Do you think that we should mention a master list to pick from? Yeah, that's the most important thing.
So here's my recommendation for you. We talked about earlier having an executive meeting on September 9th. That'll be just a transition meeting between me and Dan. If you add to that agenda, which is how do you want to decide? Do you want to advertise? How do you want to reach out to the community? Do you want to have, if you say, put out a notice in the paper saying, we have money available for, you're going to get a lot of responses. And if that's what you want, then go with that. And then the county board can weigh responses or weigh tranches of groups of what they want to do. But if you're going to open up to everybody, you should have, just like we have these other things. If it's not internally used, you should come up with, is it fair to give his organization something and not give somebody else's a consideration or the opportunity to ask? That's, that's one path you could take.
Well, I don't think it would make any sense to forward this to the full county board unless we have priority list in front of us. We have to have already picked out what we think is most important and then forward that to the full county board with our recommendation. But right now, we don't know, he's talking about a list, we haven't seen a list. So we have to see that.
Good idea.
Could I make a suggestion
Go
or
ahead.
offer something? Instead of going down to that detail and requesting that people make individual requests, you've got a lot of really good people working for you throughout the county. And I don't want to offer them up because I know they're really busy, but perhaps coming up with categories that the county board would prioritize would help you narrow down those requests that you would get. So if you're going to put priority on childcare, if you're going to put priority on, I don't know,
Broadband.
what's broadband, all of those things, maybe you could narrow it down to categories that you will accept requests from, which could help streamline your process a little bit. And in that way, you can also help prioritize in your minds and have those discussions. And I wonder if it might be better at either a committee level like you have here, or forming a committee that brings in some of your department heads that understand the needs of the community very, very, very well.
We have a motion on the floor now. Yeah.
Motion on the floor is to table this until you develop further guidance.
Do we have a second to that motion?
Gary second.
Very seconded it.
I forgot.
You got that, Lori?
Yes, I do. That it will be tabled until we come up with a procedure that is agreeable with everybody per Bill. Or per Marty, I'm sorry.
You kind of dressed that up a little bit.
Nope, that's exactly how he said it.
Okay. All those in favor of Marty's motion? Say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Satisfied that you're working on this?
I am.
Very serious.
I know
These are
these are difficult choices, and I really appreciate the time and patience that you took.
Thank you.
And if I can be of any help, whether it's the childcare issue or any other issues regarding economic development, I hope you won't hesitate to call really, I want us to move forward in the wisest way, so. Thank you again, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Well, you know, talking about prioritizing it. Mine. You wanna put this amount of money into broadband, which I don't give a damn about, or do you wanna help? Childcare, this is how you prioritize it. What the hell is more important?
I would have liked to
Maybe
see
it
the
takes
list.
you longer to get on the internet.
I would have liked to see the list.
That's it. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Yep, take care.
Thanks, Jim. You bet, thank you.
Okay, now. I don't know, we've already talked about ARPA uses,
Two more items in our.
Same discussion we had.
So
You know, I'm pretty old, so we can't really get too deep into this. I'd like to be here for the end result.
Well, you know, you guys are lucky. This will be one of your last meetings where you have to suffer through me in all my writings. So, so there you go. It'll be a blessing. You guys, maybe Dan doesn't want to write as much as I write, you know, and maybe your meetings will be simpler. So, what I'm getting is I'm getting multiple requests. There hasn't been any procedure. We haven't put this out there to say, are you worth it? Basically, we have some departments are like, give me $1,000, some give each employee $5,000. Rumors started going around. I started getting emails from, you know, district attorney, the county clerk's office, the highway department weighed in today. So you have basically the question is, do you want to give, you know, federal money to basically the county employees, you know, from the ARPA funds? Now, you've read through the PAC Act, and there's categories. It gets complicated. If you go over 150% of the per capita for either your county or state, whichever is higher, then it even becomes more difficult because each individual person has to be justified to say, why is it in that person's interest to do this? Like if you're to give me money from this ARPA thing, I'm way over the per capita income. You'd have to justify why is it worthwhile for Clark? So you read through the packet, you can see the allowable uses. If you want to consider basically allowing departments to apply or make requests for ARPA funds, you're going to have to answer some questions.
I have a question. Now, hopefully it'll simplify it. I don't think I think that there was not, these people deserve something, but it isn't just one person or whoever's making the biggest request or making the most noise. I think what the county should do, they should have a policy how they're going to do it. I think the people that showed up for work should be compensated more, or they should be compensated compared to those that did not show up for work, that were online. But I think, you know, to take one individual or one department and say, okay, yeah, they deserve a raise. I think all the county employees are underpaid. But to go ahead and single out one and say, yeah, we should use this ARPA money on just this department. No, I won't go for that. I think it should be, we should, go ahead, Marty.
Weren't you talking at one time, Clark, about doing a study of a compensation study for all the county?
So that is agenda item number 8.
Oh, well, then I'll shut up.
And I have a big write-up for that I'm going to talk about.
Yeah,
So
I think,
when Bill, you talk about application, so here's, if you want to consider this, you are a policy-making board. You know, it's not, if you guys make a policy that everybody's got to wear blue shirts if they're going to be employed by Ashland County,
Does this call blue?
it's up to me to carry that out. You guys set the policy. And you have to do, if you want to do this, you need to set a policy. The questions you're going to have to answer. You know, do you consider staff that were hired during the pandemic? What about recent staff? Staff who work both in person and remotely, 80% in person, 20% remote, 50-50, 100 or nothing. Should all county employees, other than those who worked 100% remotely, get premium pay? Should you reward staff who took more risk with more money? How would you determine risk? People who recently retired, just retired, should you give them something? What time period would be effective for the premium pay? What about people who work part-time? What about what total amount, and this gets back to your basic question, Bill, what total amount of ARPA funds should be reserved for county staff premium pay? That's your first question. Should you wait for the county survey, which has this question on it about the citizens what do they want the money from the ARPA funds to be used for? That survey gets done on August 31st. We'll have those answers hopefully by September 16th for the county board. What do they citizens want the money to be used for? Should staff which did not lose a job have any hours cut or decrease in wages be given a bonus? What about workers in the county who worked throughout the pandemic to keep us fed, clothed, and supplied? Is there an element of public relations which this committee wants to weigh in on and consider? Are you going to give it to county workers who never basically lost a dollar and not give it to people who got evicted from their homes because they lost a job? And then finally, missteps could result in payback from an audit. So basically the Treasury Department language is in there. I have the per capita income limits in there, the interim rules. And so basically there isn't, I think first off, the people who I oversee are super concerned that some people have asked and some people haven't. And I'm like, well, they're not going to make any decision today because you haven't set a policy. This isn't a free for all. Clark is not the king. I don't get to decide. I like Bill. I'm going to give him $10,000. Marty, you get $500.
Well, he's leaving anyway. Don't worry about it.
So those are your discussion points. Do you want to set a policy? And if you do, then you need to come down and say, what do you want to consider and how do you want to consider it?
I would like to see a figure, if we decide to give all the Ashland County employees, all of them, a percentage raise, a percentage bonus, like 2% or something. I'd like to know how much we're actually giving out. Yeah.
Yeah, see,
And rather than just pick out and say the sheriff's department was out there, but if you were at the courthouse, somebody came in, they were kind of frontliners too, compared to the people that were working at home.
this kind of goes right back to where we started before. We're spending money we don't know that we even have or will have because we haven't put this on the list. I'm not going to make a decision to pay anybody anything premium wise until we know where our dollars, what's left, what are prior. Because as soon as you give 150,000 here and somebody else comes in and gets 150,000, then pretty soon the money's gone. I don't know where this premium pay discussion. Well, I do. Clark explained it. I'm not voting for that right now until I see where all our dollars are.
I wouldn't say, I would like to know it for the next meeting, to say if we gave a bonus 2% across the board to all the county employees, I would like to know what the figure is. And we can discuss it at the next meeting.
I think you're going down a dangerous road. The taxpayers are pretty in tune to what's going on in this budget. Yesterday, I got my rear end handed to me after a forestry meeting from a public citizen who said, we understand the county is broke and yet you're out there spending all this money. I would be real leery of putting out too much more money until we can explain to the taxpayers we took care of this budget. Because I saw the preliminary budget coming up soon, and that is scary as heck when you're diverting money. You're going to raise the taxes this much over here, and you're going to put debt levy over here on the taxpayers again. And the taxpayers are just about to the limit right now. They're saying, you're going to raise county taxes how much? And so my concern is not whether employees deserve a raise, they do. But I think we keep trying to spend money we don't have or won't have.
Yeah, I would just like to see some figures. I'm not saying I'm in favor of doing it, but I'm not in favor of taking one department and saying that this is a better department or this one, that's what I want to do. You know, I don't want that to happen, say that the sheriffs work harder than the nurses, you know, so I would just like to see a plain figure, like if we decided to give 2% bonus pay for working during the pandemic. I just would like to see the figure. That's it.
Yeah, so the only, in my circle, this is a controversial issue. You're putting your thumb down on what your staff is worth in their minds, even though you're not intending that. But you're saying, you know, Clark, you know, he gets the same pay. I earn $12 an hour and I get the same amount as somebody else. The only county that is considering this, because of the controversy, is Lincoln County. And they're talking about in a committee this week, the county administrator down there is going to recommend that they pick an effective date of whatever, July 1st this year. Every county that was on payroll on July 1st gets $500 from the ARPA funds. And that's basically how they're just navigating this without getting into the weeds. They're not going down, because like even the remote employees, you know, it's like if you're 100% remote, everybody agrees you don't get anything. But if you're 80%, 50%, 60%, where does it land? You're still in the front lines, you're doing all those things. And so that's what they're going to do. If you have about 200 employees here, so that would be $100,000.
And you're right, the percentage is not a fair increase at all, because a $12 an hour, 2% compared to a $20, 2% is not equal. It's just, it just keeps going like this, even if it's a lump sum, it's.
I guess the thing is, I'd like to see when you're talking about people that work exclusively from home versus people that actually were here, or percentage.
No, the home and at remote and at in person have no difference. I worked 14 years from home, and I can bet my bottom dollar that I worked as harder than some of my coworkers in the office, because they left at 5. I didn't leave the office at 5. I can prove email sent at 4:30 in the morning to my coworkers because I was up and work was right there at that desk. So there is no comparison. Now you could have, you and I are both, you work in the office, I work at home, and I'm screwing off. That's a different issue. But most people working remote work as harder because the office is always there. And so you can't compare and say, well, we're giving people in the office more.
Yeah, but I was saying that they were people that came in person were exposed to more than you being home. You were not exposed to anything at home.
You're talking about risks of this stuff.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If somebody was working like at the jail or the sheriff's department or the nurses, they were actually exposed to people, or people that came to the courthouse and were actually working. They were exposed, and that's where I'm not saying about work. No, my next door neighbor works for social services, and I know she's a hard worker. She doesn't let her kids in the house. No, can't be in the house. You know, so I'm not saying that they weren't good workers. I'm just saying that they were exposed more to the pandemic and you know.
So if you go down that road, you're gonna have to say, what's the effective start date? What's the effective end date?
Right.
Did you work 100% remote during that time frame, or were you here partially? I know Health and Human Services, in order to limit cross-contamination risk exposure, they switched, you know, most of those people work 4-day weeks. They basically switched. So people would be like, if you had 2 in office, one person would work remotely 2 days, the other person would work remotely the other 2 days. And they basically decrease the amount of staff, but everybody showed up to work occasionally. But, you know, those are the issues you'd have to consider.
But you just said that the vast majority of counties are not going down this road.
I've only found one.
Okay.
And it is, I mean, you literally are gonna have people upset no matter what you do, but that's you're elected. This is what you do.
Well, first of all, I think that if we do something like that, it should be as simple as possible. First of all, with all due respect, I think that
you could complicate the pledge of allegiance. They were analyzing everything. Yeah, no disrespect. I'm just saying you're,
I'm gonna go home and cry.
you're digging into the bottom line of everything, what could possibly happen and what this money is designed for. Primarily is frontline workers. And if you've been working at home all this time and the sheriff's been out there doing their job just like they did because they can't do it any other way, those are the guys that really deserve that extra money. And they're talking about the court system was open. You don't know what kind of characters are coming into the court.
That's right.
You know, people who took no risks. I don't know. I don't know, but I think we should make this as simple as possible so that simple people like me can understand it.
Just from listening to what Gary said when I said the percentage, I see what he's saying as far as that. If we picked the dollar amount, that everybody would get a dollar amount, let's say, just throw it out there, $1,000, that they would get a bonus. But if you work from home exclusively, you would get nothing. But if you were prorated, you'd get the proration. And I'd like to see how much it would cost.
Yeah.
And then we can discuss this again at the executive meeting on the 9th. And we can, if we decide that, we can make a recommendation to the county board on the 16th. That would be 7 days. If we say, okay, it's going to cost us $128,000, the way we figured it. Okay, then we can take it to the county board and say, these were the people that were exposed. They were, you know, compared to being at home. If it's a percentage, take a percentage. And I would say we should go all the way back to, let's say, March 1st of 2020, 2020. March 1st, 2020.
Well,
If whoever was employed after that, they could be, you know, prorated or they would be entitled to it. If they retired in the meantime, they were exposed to it also.
Oh, let's not give ex-employees money. That's gonna be very complicated. They've already retired. No offense.
Yeah, and I think too, and we could discuss this to death, but a person, I think you make it as simple as possible. If you'd go down the road, I like the flat rate for everybody, end of story. You can't start comparing working at home and exposed, because you could have been here every day of the week and never been exposed. And what's the difference if you were exposed in here or at the grocery store that night? You worked from home and you went to the grocery store and got
I
it.
went to the grocery store because I wanted to get groceries. I was here at work because if I didn't show up,
You were given the opportunity to work from
not
home.
all offices.
No, but those that work from home were given the opportunity. That's not a negative. You've got to treat every employee alike, whether they were here or at home. The ones that work from home were given the opportunity to work from home. You can't make that a negative.
I think what we have to do then is just exactly what Bill said. Figure out how much money it would cost if you give a flat rate to everybody.
Right.
And then get the list out and of requests and see how much money that is. And then
Well,
weigh the two.
We don't have a list, sorry to interrupt, we don't have a list of requests because we haven't set a policy to say all county employees put in a request for ARPA funds. That hasn't been done.
Well, I don't think you should send an invitation.
That's,
How gonna turn that down?
that's a fair thing to do though. I mean, you know, there's no,
But I think the simpler way is just to say, if we're gonna do something, do a flat rate to every employee as of a certain date. And I agree, I don't think you pay retirees. or
so the
retirees.
thing is, it's just simple numbers. You got 200 employees.
Right.
Hypothetically, let's throw a $500 bill out there, okay? That's $100,000.
Right.
Now, if you want to kind of juggle this around a little bit, the high, people over here at the cop shop, that has to be there, they're in the trenches every day and all that kind of stuff. Say you want to bump those guys up to $1,000. Okay, and that's not 200 employees at $1,000. That would be numbers that would be coming out at the end of September, at the end of August, that the survey is being taken up. And I'm almost prepared to make a motion to table this, similar to what we did at the last item on the agenda, only because we're looking at numbers. No matter what we do, we gotta have numbers. And those numbers ain't gonna be available to us until the end of August. It may get to us maybe middle of September.
September 9th meeting,
Well,
would we have this available? If we said if we gave a bonus of $1,000 to all the employees, would we have the amounts available if those are, as of March 1st, 2020, for the people that are working right now yet, not the retired then?
What about people who started this year?
Well, that they would qualify, but it would be, I don't know if you would want to, depending on when they started, I suppose.
Well, that's where I'm saying, it's like.
I would put March 1st, 2020 as the starting date. And what day did the governor release the mandatory mask?
June sometime.
Let's put it June 1st.
Gary, now with if we went down that road, gave everybody a flat rate. Would your constituents figure that out, that that's not coming out of the county budget?
They're pretty astute.
I know
What
what
they
you're
want,
saying, it looks bad.
what they want to do is they want to make sure that, like Clark did, he moved all those items, Fart Bus and Meals on Wheels. That's what they were looking for. They want those to continue, but they want to free up the money they're concerned that we're not balancing our budget. And that's a start. So I think if they see we gave big raises to a bunch of folks that work for us hard, that we're gonna have to explain why we did it. And we may be able to do it. I think we gotta be careful because we went from 500 to maybe 1,000. Now we're talking $200,000. And I'm still concerned we're spending money we don't know. But I don't have a problem with tabling it either, Mike. I mean, and then looking and seeing where are we on this list of priorities.
I mean, the math is pretty simple, give or take.
Right.
500 bucks is 100,000, 1,000 bucks is 200,000.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you want simple, that's very simple. You don't have to do the math.
We do have to put some dates in there.
They're not gonna send a check back. If you send them a check, they're not gonna send a check back. No, I don't want this. I already got paid.
But
I'll take the check.
yeah, from a payroll standpoint, people have retired. We don't want to basically take the equivalent now of private citizens and give them a $500 bill. Because if you start going down that road, well, I would want to give $500 to the guy who does my checkout at Super One all the time that showed up every day. He was a rock star. I mean, that guy was there every day and he worked through this thing. He's no different than anybody else.
There's one thing that occurred to me here too, is that, so let's say I'm a county employee and I work somewhere out in the courthouse, that's okay. I could make the argument that the sheriff's department has a union and they negotiated an agreement with the county, and presumably all these factors were considered in that process. But I didn't, I'm not part of that. So that makes a little bit different light on matters, it seemed to me. Maybe.
Yeah, that may be, if looking back, we may have been premature, or frankly, let's just say, I may have been premature to, help that negotiate that $1,200 for those, I think it's 18 people in the union contract, because I had not considered in totality, what does that mean for the rest of the 180 staff? I had not considered that. And that even though you guys all voted for it, ultimately, that probably rests with me, so, but I can't do anything about that.
Yeah, I'm just saying that could be a consideration
Yeah.
for me as a
Yeah.
non-union employee.
Well, Bill, I think that's a good idea.
Well, like I say, I would like to bring this again next meeting on September 9th and have the figures, what it would be if we gave every employee that was working now and from March 1st, I guess we don't need a date.
I'd actually offer this as a suggested motion. If we're not gonna pay retirees, what difference does it make when they started?
If they're current employee.
I would just say current, no offense, I would just say current
If I just
employees.
started last week, are you going to give me $500?
Yes, because you got the 2% raise potentially too. If you started last week and we had settled last week, you'd get the 2%. Somebody's always gonna be first, somebody's always gonna be last. I hate these comparisons about, well, we're dead last. Somebody has to be last. But I understand the thinking. I've been here 20 years, you've been here 1, and you're gonna get the
Well, you
same.
just started.
But, well, that's fine. That's a bonus. Thank you for working for us.
Yeah, and I'm kind of with Gary on this, which is, if you want it simple, the simple thing is pick an effective date and say, whenever you approve it. So let's say the county board approves that on September 16th. If you're an active employee, you're gonna get $500. You're not gonna get $500 to me because I'm not gonna be an active employee, even though I worked through the entire thing.
So you're saying that if I was an active employee on June 1st, I would get $500.
I'm saying September 16th then. Sorry, I apologize for that misstatement.
When the board votes for it.
Whenever you approve it.
No, what I mean is to be eligible for the $500, I have to be an employee, an active employee on June 1st or whatever day we pick.
Well,
September.
you could say, I'm sorry, Ben. I apologize. You could say, I'm trying to make it as simple as can be understood. You could say, if you recommend $500 when it's approved for active employees who are employed as of June 1st. So the person who starts between June and September 16th, nothing. Everybody who was employed before June 1st, they would get the $500.
And then if you're working part-time, it would be prorated?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, first
Well,
we
if you're
got,
only working 50%.
first we gotta deal with, Mike had a motion to table it, so we gotta see what happened with that motion, if there ever was a second. Because you made a motion to table it before, unless you withdraw that motion.
He doesn't get a second. It's
Well, but that's why I'm saying, that's still on the table.
I think the comment was, I would be willing to make a motion to table this because at the end of the month, we will have numbers available to us to make the decision that we're discussing at present.
Okay,
So there's no motion at the
okay.
table.
So do you wanna just talk about it on the 6th or the 9th?
But I would like some information.
Right.
But I would like to pick whatever date you pick, June 1st.
Yeah.
If you were actively employed June 1st and you still are now,
That gives me some guidance to put together a policy and come back on the 9th with you. So that's good. That's how you
Is
get
that-
things.
Is that June 1st of 22 or 21?
21.
21.
This is Sue. Can I just weigh in on this for a second? We may have had some employees that retired since June 1st or prior. And, we submit their wages to Wisconsin Retirement and they start to draw their annuity. I'm just wondering if there might be some ramifications with an additional $500, depending on the way it gets paid.
Sue, there won't be because what the policy will say is if you're employed on June 1st, you would get $500 if you're an active employee when the county board approves it. So only people who are on the payroll on September, let's say it's September 16th. So look at me exactly. I'm here on June 1st, but I'm not going to be working for you on the 16th, so I wouldn't get the money. So only people who are actually on the payroll on the 16th would be eligible.
On the 16th of September, okay,
Yes, if they approve it.
okay, yep, all right, thank you.
Now, getting back to the flat rate, this quick here. What that would do would take away any possible bickering between departments. Like if we were going to give sheriff's department a raise, this department, just give them all the same amount of money, then we get something for everybody. And Gary, if you want, I'll go down and talk to your constituents.
So if we buy a couple of beers.
Oh, hell yeah. And not with county money.
So this will be brought up again September.
Everybody's coming back.
Yes, yes. So I appreciate, I mean, it's a complicated issue and I really appreciate you guys coming down to a simple answer because I feel if you're gonna do it, this is the only way you're gonna get it done.
Okay, so was that a motion? And if so,
No.
by who?
Nope, no motion. They just want it back on the agenda with a policy drafted by staff for them to consider on the 9th of September
With a dollar amount.
with a dollar amount.
Okay.
And it wouldn't hurt to interject a little common sense into this decision.
All right, next one.
No kidding, are we off that already?
Move right along.
I'm a short timer. I got things to do.
I have to go to the fair.
Well, then why did you give us the Sears catalog?
Because I like you guys.
Okay, 5C radio repeater tower invoice, is that what we're after now?
Yeah, so this is, again, this is something that is an ARPA fund request. It's over $5,000, so I can't approve it. You can approve this. And what we basically are doing here is we basically relocated the 911 repeater onto a new tower that was put up on the res by, I think, the reservation themselves, I think by the tribe themselves. And we're paying basically just to relocate our repeater to the next repeater. And in the ARPA funding, in my reading of this basically fits underneath infrastructure improvements for responding to a pandemic.
It's $10,000.
$10,000, yes.
I'll make a motion that we approve this.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Bill and a second by Marty to approve this expenditure for the radio repeater tower invoice. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Employee handbook changes.
Okay.
I just don't know how these guys feel about it, but I've got 50 pages of this BS right here. And we've gone through this 100 times. Is it necessary that these changes are made now?
Well, each of these changes is made by, as you well know in your working life, every HR manual is written because things happen that you didn't have addressed. And so these are things which I'm basically addressing because we had a problem. So when you look on page 8, de facto resignation, staff who failed to report to work for 3 consecutive days, failed to communicate with their supervisor in the same 3 consecutive days, and failed to respond to other supervisors' communications will be deemed to have voluntarily resigned from their position and will forfeit any claims to unemployment compensation. In the event of an extreme circumstances, the 3-day period may be extended by the department head or county administrator. So in this case, we had a staff who abandoned their job. This just happened a couple months ago. We couldn't get a hold of them. They moved out of state. Their temporary cell number got deleted. Is this person resigned? Is this person, do they want to file for unemployment? If we send them a letter and says, we're terminating you because you abandoned your job, because your manual does say if you abandon, basically if you don't show up for work, you get fired. Well, in this case, he's abandoned his job. So I want to put in there that basically it's a resignation if you don't show up, and you don't tell us why you're not showing up. So this is an issue which I think is good for you to put in your HR manual.
What else is in there then that's that important?
Well, there's from working at home on the remote.
Yeah, so the next thing is basically, we're just putting in the HR manual what you already approved, the remote work policy. So that's basically, you've already approved it. I'm just interjecting it into the policy. The next item on this is vacation time must be used in a 12-month period following an employee's anniversary date or will be lost. In rare instances, up to 1 week can be carried over the following 12-month period prior to approval given by, and here it had the county board executive committee. And basically just changing that because you're administrative operation, I'm just changing it to administrator. And again, I have a request. This came today for somebody who basically can't take time off. They've gone through their supervisor, they've gone to the department head, now they're coming to me. It just came today, we can't put it on the agenda for today. I think you need to have the flexibility to do that. I'm also, I didn't put this in, but there is a consideration. This comes up all the time, especially during the pandemic. We have people who basically, your vacation, you get allocated your vacation after you've worked a year, and then you get 10 days. And then you use that 10 days. The next year you get 10 days onto your anniversary, but you don't get to carry any over. So you never have 20 days of vacation. We have people bump, especially longtime employees, they get 28 days of vacation. Is super, super generous vacation. We have people that just can't use that much time and they feel they have to. So right before their anniversary date, they're just taking off and they're, it could be a bad time of year, it could be Christmas time. One of the things, and I haven't put this in writing yet, but we just thought about yesterday, which is what about just getting rid of vacation on anniversaries, where you lose it, but never paying out more than 1 year's worth of vacation. It would eliminate the rush to use it or lose it.
I had several county board members and we've amended this handbook 10 times. It's almost every county board meeting we're amending the handbook.
No, that's the county board handbook. This is the employee handbook.
Well,
That's different.
two difference.
Yeah. The county board handbook is how you govern yourself.
This is the employee.
This is the
handbook.
employee handbook. Yeah, so this is a different deal. I think we've changed this once since I've got here. Twice, okay.
Okay.
We have unlimited.
Yeah.
So you don't have to consider that change if you don't want to. I just thought that was something you could consider, which is just say it doesn't go away, but you don't get paid out for it. That way you don't have staff rushing to get rid of their vacation time before their anniversary date.
Use it or lose it kind of thing.
Yes. And the reason you do that, first off, is you don't want to pay out people twice their vacation time because that's money that you don't have. Then secondly, at a certain point, you don't want staff having 56 days of vacation. So
I'll second it.
well, and then basically just clarifying, unused vacation shall not be paid out if the employee uses any unplanned or unapproved vacation time during the period. Employees cannot receive more than their yearly allocation of vacation payout regardless of the date of retirement or separation. And so basically this would preclude people from saying, I'm going to retire and I'm going to take off 2 months. That's not fair to the organization. You can have some time there to be approved by your supervisor, but you can't take off, 2 months of time before your retirement. That's not in the best interest of the organization. And then in addition, I'm just clarifying what the simple language of the handbook is, which is employees cannot receive more than their yearly allocation of vacation payout regardless of the date of retirement or separation. I don't know if this happens, but if somebody, I think some of the impression of the staff is, if I don't use any vacation time and I wait till I retire on my anniversary date, I basically don't have any of that expired, plus I'm gonna get my new 28 days, and therefore I'm gonna have 56 days payout.
Is this addressing then the problem I ran into with Amber Shield?
Yes.
We don't want that to happen.
No, and we had somebody in the sheriff's department basically give notice and then left for 6 weeks. You know, I mean, that's, you know, you need to figure that out, so people, and I can't address the sheriff's department because they're in a union, they have a different deal, but this would basically help you, you know, unused vacation, so this basically talks about notice. So as a, for non-department head, 2 weeks is called, you know, sufficient notice. A department head, you have to give 4 weeks of effective notice.
Now, we discussed this before. When I was ready to retire from the county, the former administrator brought it up to the executive committee that department heads need to give a month notice. But yet when he left, he gave 2 weeks notice.
Yeah, so we're addressing this issue. So
I know, but I'm just saying, why did they allow him to do that?
well, you can do that. I could leave tomorrow.
Yeah,
But if you have this language in here, you're not gonna pay out my vacation or my sick time. I'm not gonna get a payout if I leave tomorrow because I didn't give you proper notice. Now, because I let you know in April, and we're 6 months later here, it's obviously a different case.
don't worry.
But I'm trying to stop that, which is, yeah, you don't have to give us proper notice. If you hate your job so much, you just wanna leave, that's fine, but we're not gonna pay you out.
Don't worry, Dick, he's not leaving tomorrow. He's got more paperwork for you.
Yeah, I got tons of stuff for you to do. So, so that basically, you know, to me, that's why I'm putting that in there. Sick or illness, I'm adding in that, in my opinion, I think this is your practice. I'm just putting it in there. You can use sick time for illness of a child under the age of 18. And so we have that's in there because people are doing it anyway. And if they're gonna do it anyway, and you're not gonna enforce it, you might as well put it in your manual, no offense. And then basically, you get sick leave every January, and let's say you use up more, you use it all up in January, February, then you retire in May, you actually are gonna owe the county money because you used it all up ahead of time. And so you have to pay that back. That'll just be withheld from the county employee, and the same thing with personal time. And then lastly, last thing, Dick, leave without pay. In unique cases, employees who have exhausted their vacation time and personal time can request unpaid personal time. Outside of a medical leave or military leave, employees can, with supervisor's approval, seek permission for up to 5 days of unpaid leave after they have used up all their vacation personal time during a calendar year. This is predicated on pre-approval of the supervisor. With a medical note from the doctors, employee can request up to 60 days of leave without pay before they will be considered a resignation. During the leave without pay period, staff will be required to pay the full amount of any benefits for any month which they have no pay from the county. So I'm addressing two issues here. Predominantly new staff that have newborns, and other people that may have other childcare issues that they have to deal with. They probably use up their time off because you don't get any vacation until you work a year. And so they have no vacation for 12 months. Should they be able to take time off without pay? Well, you don't have a policy that addresses that. This one does. Secondly, we had a case where a person basically just wanted to have leave without pay, still be considered an active employee or an inactive employee. So they weren't getting paid, they weren't here, but they want to be considered an inactive employee for some reason. It has to do with retirement and whatever, you know, but in this case, if you basically go through the FMLA process, you're gone 12 weeks and you're still basically, and then we'll give you 60 more days to leave without pay. If you're not coming back after that, we'll consider it a resignation.
So what this is doing though, is it's extending, we're not paying them for their time off, but you're paying their way with their health care.
No, they have to pay during the leave period without pay. Staff will be required to pay the full amount of any benefits for any month they have no pay from the county. So in this case, I would have to pay the full $2,000, the COBRA rate for my health care if I'm basically gone, you know, for a medical issue, I've used up 12 weeks of FMLA, and I got 2 more months after that. I gotta pay the medical costs for that. So we're basically, what we're doing is we're putting a time limit on, because we had somebody that was, this just went on and on and on. And we had somebody who basically just, we didn't want to terminate them. They didn't want to resign. We were at a stalemate on there. So this would basically say, just like before, it's a resignation if you don't show up back to work after 60 days.
So right now, if somebody's asked for paid leave, unpaid leave, is the county paying the insurance?
Well, this says right here, basically.
I know, but what's happening now is if somebody gets asked for an unpaid leave, does the county continue to pay the insurance?
It's my understanding the employee or the ex-employee has to pay the insurance for unpaid leave, but we don't have a time limit on it. So I don't think we're changing that policy, but we're basically just putting a time limit on saying, what is the maximum amount that we would allow somebody to be basically not an employee, and just hang out. Again, all these things happen because.
Well, the thing is, you don't fill a job if you think that you got somebody coming back.
Precisely. Yep. So that's basically, those are the changes. And I would just seek a motion to adopt the employee handbook as presented.
This is Gary. I also move.
Do we have a second?
This is Marty Vitek. I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the employee handbook changes as recorded. All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you.
That wasn't so painful, was it?
You did good, Clark.
Thank you.
Wasn't that good?
Number 7, hiring freeze.
Living, breathing documents.
Go ahead and fire me. Then I'll get unemployment. I'm gonna be insubordinate and then I'll get unemployment from you guys. So back in May, a hiring freeze was instituted that it has to basically either go through this committee or through a joint decision by the chairperson and administrator. These are the positions that we basically have gone through. And in addition, I just got a note again today. From Health and Human Services, our environmental health specialist will be retiring in November, November 4th. And they would like the authorization to fill that. Again, it's a mandated position. You have to do this. So, and then so we'll just add that to the list. But this is just a report. We basically have, you got, as Kim alluded to from the jail, you have all these positions from the jail, which you're trying to fill. They're not easy to fill.
I think that health inspector, I think that comes under duties as assigned to the board chair. You could inspect the restaurants and food places.
He resigned?
Sanitarian.
I'm in elections all the time.
Oh, in November.
So our current sanitarian who worked on the public health department is retiring. And Terry just sent me a note this morning that she would like that position authorization to advertise for that position. And that's what we've been doing basically. Dick and I, when we get these requests, I talk to Dick about it. We talk about why the position, needs to be filled, so you can go through this list and ask questions if you want, but
So all the people at the sheriff's department or the jail, they have not been replaced or have been replaced? Or
have
what?
not.
Have not.
These are all hiring freeze approvals by the chairperson and county administrator. So these are positions they currently are budgeted for, but they don't have anybody in there because, as she said, they're paying $12 an hour for a part-time position inside the jail. What are you doing with your spare time, Bill?
But where does
I don't have any.
your request come from, either the sheriff's department or from us, to look at increasing those wages? Does it come to here, finance, or?
Well, so that's where you end up with this two things. So in the write-up, you will see that the finance committee does approve the wages and wage increases. And the executive committee is in charge of salaries and salary schedules. So you ask me. So so like when you think about in the finance packet, and that's online, you'll see the request for 5% in addition to the 2% for the jail staff. You know, but then you have a whole laundry list of people. Mary Jo wanted $6,500 more a year. You had some people wanted $1 here, $1 there. That item will be up for discussion, but to a certain extent, you have to work with the money that you have.
Right, but I mean, everybody knows that some of those lower paid positions are competing with McDonald's. You can get $15 an hour to work at McDonald's.
14.
Or 14, but if you move up a notch, you get 50. But I mean, so somebody, whether it's us or finance or both of us, probably need to look at those lower paid positions and say, is that realistic?
It say like anybody below so much gets like a 3% raise or something, a different percentage.
Well, we need to
Or
set,
set raise to a certain point,
yeah, we need to set
a
a
minimum.
yeah, whatever that, like, let's pick on the jailer or the cook of where that was, and say, we need to raise that from wherever it is today to whatever we want it.
But how's the food?
Next time you go out expecting ribeyes, I'll drive, okay?
But is that something we should
Yeah, we
put
should
on
have
an
two
agenda
people,
for
yeah.
a discussion, or finance, or both?
So finance will be looking again at the wage request. They tabled any wage request till September 21st. Because first off, they wanted to see, they adopted the healthcare, the underperforming healthcare fund. They're moving it from $2.8 million a year contribution to, I believe, $3.4 million contribution. So you're talking, you know, or maybe it was 3.3, I can't remember. You're talking $500,000 of general fund dollars. Now, some of that will be brought back into the county for departments that have a billable reimbursement. Health and Human Services gets money back. Highway bills for benefits for every time they plow a road. There might be some other people. So we're going to send that back out tomorrow to the departments. They're going to bring that back in, and then we'll redo the budget to see what does that look like, because my gut guess is you'll see a budget that's a few $100,000 in the hole. Then you're going to have to fit, and that's with putting in $200,000 of ARPA funds to pay for the non-mandated services. Then you're going to face the decision, okay, you're a few $100,000 in the hole. Do you want to consider these wage increases? To make the whole deeper.
But there's a big difference here between a discussion of everybody in the sheriff's department getting an additional bump versus those hard to fill positions at the bottom. That's the decision. I think whoever has to make it needs to look at it and say, can we continue offering a job at $12 an hour, or do we, and we're not talking everybody, we're talking those specific positions, or should we raise those positions?
If we don't do what the market demands, we'll be waiting until the cows come home.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's my question. Is that something we put on the next agenda for us, or do we let finance?
Can we make a recommendation to finance?
I think finance is currently dealing with it.
Okay.
They're basically going to be dealing with it at the 21st, because
Okay.
it's a global decision.
Right,
If you have to cut the budgets
right.
by $300,000, what are you going to do?
I guess if you go to jail, you bring your own meal.
When you guys are comparing before wages that we pay, I don't know, that would be a flex position at the jail or whatever it's called, to McDonald's. Well, if you're working at McDonald's, even though the food is bad, it ain't gonna kill you.
It isn't that
If
bad.
you're working in a jail, the possibility is always there. I just talked to Gary Fox just a couple days ago, who works at the jail, I guess in one of those positions. And it's to the point now where a lot of times he works a double shift. Well, now we're paying overtime. Whereas if we bump people up, maybe we should get everybody working straight time.
Great, that would be an excellent idea.
Yeah.
All right, I'll talk to Kim. I mean, but the issue is, I mean, you look at these positions, I mean, the jailers are in the same ballpark. It's not just the cook. It's the jailer.
What is it with the jailer? Now, this has been going on for long. Is it their clientele that's the problem, or is what, just why don't people want to be jailers?
They don't get paid that much.
It's a hard job.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very difficult job.
And to be honest, it's shift work, it's every day of the week. Days, I mean, you may work to Sunday, you might work Christmas. There are job opportunities out there right now that pay the same or a little bit more with better conditions. So they have a tough job. And I'm not picking on one over the other, but we do have I mean, right now, it's a hiring market. If I wasn't retired, I could get a job in 10 minutes. You know, there's jobs everywhere. Look around. Everybody's got a sign in their window. So you're competing against all these other folks.
If I ever find a guy who's on unemployment, who's willing to go back to work, I'm gonna have him bronzed.
Yeah, they don't exist.
No, there's no incentive.
So, I mean, Kim did put in a request in the budget from the finance packet for a 5% increase for jail staff. So that's already there. I don't know if I can't remember if she's done, I think she did do the math. Did she do the math on that, Lori?
Yeah, she did the 2% increase as she was told, and then an additional 3 for a total of 5. So it's not over and a total, it's not 5% and then another 2% on top of that.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Just a little word about this list that you put out. Jobs that we filled. I have yet to bump into a department head that says, we had somebody that quit, but I don't have to fill that position. Everybody thinks that
That's not
every
true.
job is essential.
That's not true. The social services is that they combine some positions.
Because they couldn't find anyone.
Yeah, but they got by with combining a couple positions, but that was maybe a year ago.
Yeah, that's the exception.
Yeah,
But everybody else, I mean, they
Right.
plead their case and this is what we have to do to keep the ship going. Oh, yeah, we approve it, and it looks like we're not sticking to the hiring freeze thing, but you know, when you get most of these, had to do with the sheriff's department. You can't have the sheriff's department short staffed. That's just crazy. Go ahead. Have the floor.
That was just a report.
Oh,
We're ready for the next thing.
okay. Comparable wage study. Oh, boy.
So, and this is my recommendation for you and put it in the budget. I'm obviously not going to be here, but most Wisconsin counties have a set wage schedule, which incorporates all jobs within the organization. The basic principle is any compensation system is that you pay similar wages for similar levels of responsibilities, regardless of the department or the ability of the department to generate revenue. These types of studies are born out of the past practices of jobs which were predominantly staffed by women being paid less than jobs that are predominantly staffed by males. In addition, all organizations need to be as competitive as they can with similar organizations in their region in order to attract and retain staff. It is important for counties to have a scale to support budget making and planning across the entire county, not just single departments. In order to have a compensation system and wage scale, which is adopted by the county board and followed by departments, we need to standardize job descriptions. This will allow each position to be assigned a weighted point level on a scale, which takes into consideration things like training, skills, experience needed for the position, risk to oneself, risk to the county, oversight authority, both in staff, budgets, and scope of responsibility, decision-making, problem-solving, working conditions, and communications. Once each job description is pointed, they will be grouped into similar levels, so we don't end up with 180 different wage scales. Then a study is undertaken of similar sized counties with similar jobs. The average wage scale will be developed from that study, and each point level will then be put on a scale with different steps for experience built in. In county like Ashland County, we will find that most, if not all, staff are underpaid compared to other counties around us. That being said, it is still important for us to develop a wage system for staff and departments. In the end, we'll most likely end up something like we want to be at the 90% of norm for most positions, as we will not be able to afford norm to our lack of equalized value. Process is controversial. Staff tend to appeal the points they are assigned when compared to other positions with the county, and they'll try to increase it. Staff will also be disappointed when they see that the averages we are most likely will not be able to give any staff increases. Some staff will be below the expected norm set by the board, and others will be above the norm set by the board. The goal over time is to get the vast majority of staff to the same level, say 90% of norm for our region. Without a revamping of the number of staff in the county, employees will not be able to be paid the norm, is my expectation. In my discussion with Carlson Dietman, they will charge around $400 per job description. We have something like 100 job descriptions, which maybe we might be able to combine a few that are similar, but in different departments. The other approach is Sawyer County took a benchmark of 40 jobs. They spread across a range and then filled in the remaining jobs that were not rated by the contractor. The agenda item today is for you to tentatively put $35,000 to $40,000 in the 2022 budget to do a study and put everybody on a wage scale. If this is approved next year, you could put on an RFP and pick a firm and start the process early in 22, so that when you budget for 23, you have this done. And basically in here, I have a sample wage scale. This is from Bayfield County. They post this on their website, has everybody's wages on it. And you can see they have the different levels, grades, and then they have steps within each grade. And so when you're hiring people or talking to people, you basically, and if you're planning, you know, a child, what is that? I can't read that one. A child support director, and you want to bring that person in, you have to work within this wage scale. You maybe wouldn't bring them in at the low level, maybe you'll bring them at the midpoint, but you couldn't expand over the maximum for that position. And then in here, I also have our org chart. So this is the org chart that we put together. You guys have never really had a countywide org chart before. So that's on our website. And then this is a listing of all the current job titles. And so you can see here, we have, lots of titles are similar. You have a bunch of dispatchers, you have correctional officers, you have equipment operators, you have office assistants, you have, social workers 1, 2, and 3. So these are all the different things that you have within your organization currently. And this is my recommendation to you, because I think you need to protect yourself. You're just one disgruntled employee away that feels that you have a discriminatory pay practice based on a protected class. So be that, let's just pick on the elder female, and you're paying your guys more for a job that is comparably worth. You have nothing to defend yourself against that. And like I said, it is not a pleasant experience. I've gone through it twice. Staff are very competitive because I'm worth 478 points and you're worth 500. Well, I'm worth what you are, and so if staff appeal these decisions, it goes on. You have to basically go through the first process of getting all the job descriptions to be similar, where you're listing tasks, responsibilities, essential skills, non-essential skills, minimum requirements, and get all that work done. And then after that, you'd have it rated by a company. And so this is basically just a budgetary item at this point, because I'm putting in the budget $37,000. And I would like this committee, which is in charge, according to your county board handbook, you are in charge of setting a wage scale and developing a wage scale for county staff.
It seems a little bit stiff.
You want me to list a couple jokes in here? You want me to tell a couple of jokes to loosen it up a little bit, or?
No, I mean the price.
37,000?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said, I thought you said steep. Okay. So I basically had a long conversation. I've utilized the same company twice. There's only a couple companies that do this work in the state of Wisconsin. My gut guess is it will be the same price regardless of where you go, but you can put on an RFP to make sure that this $37,000 at $400 a job description is competitive. So this is something that maybe you'd want to work on in December, you know, to put together an RFP, send it out there and get going on this sometime in 2022.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
I did up half the night trying to figure this out. What the hell is it?
I blacked out all the wages.
I don't know you did. Why did put it on?
Because that's Bayfield County scale. And I basically put that on there so you can see what does a wage scale look like. So when you look at a wage scale here, you know, your GIS technician, real property lister, victim witness coordinator, legal secretary, office manager for forest, office manager for zoning, risk reduction treatment, court assistant, all those people, regardless of department, are on the same scale. And so it has nothing to do with a department that can generate revenue or a department that can't generate revenue or a department that can generate grants versus a department that can't generate grants. And so you basically are looking at skills and responsibilities, all things we talk about, and putting things, this is actually called out in your county board handbook for you to develop.
So this is just putting them in categories.
Yes.
Richard, I make a motion that we table this till the new administrator gets a chance to evaluate it.
We have to put it in the budget for the 21st.
Well, maybe he can do it next year. That's my motion. If I get a second, I move that we table this until the new administrator gets a chance to evaluate it.
We have a second. How's water? Do we have a second?
I'll second it just to get a roll.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Wait, who made the second, please?
Gary,
Thank you.
Murray, you're welcome.
We have a motion and a second to table the comparable wage study. All those in favor, tabling it, say aye.
Aye. Maybe should have a roll call.
I'll do a roll call, all right?
I say whoever talked, I could not understand you. Dick Poofall,
Yes.
Mike Berlin,
No,
Gary Mertig,
Yes.
Bill Metzinger,
Yes.
Marty Vitak.
Yes.
All right, I will take it out of the budget and you guys can deal with it later. My recommendation is you should do this. One of the things that happens is you see these requests come in for these wages. You have no idea if it's in a wage scale, if it's comparable. You're basically, everybody's just doing their own thing. And each department's doing their own scales based on how much revenue they can generate. That's no way to set salaries. So I would encourage you to do this at some point and sooner rather than later.
Number 9, review PTO policy.
So
Briefly.
yeah, basically, no staff recommendation, motion at this time. Staff are looking for feedback from the committee if they'd like to pursue this further. This is a complicated document and it's a complicated process. You're basically, in short, you're basically switching from giving people vacation and personal time and sick time, and you're rolling it all into one that would basically allocate it to the staff on a payroll basis. Every 2 weeks, you'd get a chunk of PTO. And then it talks about, there's a policy to develop. You'd have an extended leave bank if you're really sick for more than 3 days. And then it talks about how to pay those payouts out. And then in addition, I also am recommending that you get down here, that you eliminate 18 different steps of vacation. I've never seen something as crazy as this. So this is your vacation allocation methodology, all the way from there to 22. And it's a payroll nightmare. Eventually, we're gonna move you into online and, payroll time accounting within your Springbrook system, which will also print out your PTO balance and your extended leave balance. And we're trying to simplify this thing before we take that step. So one of the recommendations here also is to just go down from 18 down to 4, up to the completion of 3 years, up to the completion of 10 years, completion of 20 years, completion of 21 or more years. And basically, it just make it simpler to apply it. So this is, it's 13 pages. It's a lot of writing. I don't expect you guys to approve this. I'm not making a recommendation. I'm basically putting this out here mostly for staff and for Dan to say, this is a consideration if you want to work on this. If you want to work on this, give me or staff direction and we'll we'll basically keep refining it to present something to you. But I'd say this is probably 95% put together.
Okay, this was just for information.
It's for feedback. And so, part of it is, I want you to understand the concept. If you think this concept is something that you would encourage the county staff and the county organization to go to, that's good feedback and we can continue to work on this. If you guys think that PTO is the Antichrist, let's let the administrator know and we'll just throw it away.
Richard, I'd like to make a motion to table this until the new administrator can look at it and see what he thinks.
I'll say that. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table to,
Who made the second, please?
I did, yeah. Table the PTO policy. Until the administrators on board. All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries, thank you. Administrator updates.
Probably the only update I have is what was put in the paper yesterday concerning our jail investigation. So we had an issue with the former jail administrator, and he had passed away. And the issue was we had found that there were some checks that had not been deposited. We hired Douglas County Sheriff's Department to do an investigation. They gave a report last week, and the report came back that they found that the equivalent of $40,000 never got deposited, and the checks were destroyed. The investigation investigated the former jail administrator and their finances, and there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever that they received any funds. These were never deposited anywhere. And so the likelihood of getting that money back is probably nothing at this point. I've talked to our auditors and the fraud investigative team for Whitley, and then their opinion is in agreement with that, because it probably cost them $30,000 to do in-depth audit of deposits over the last few years to find out which checks were not deposited. And then we're going to go back to those people and say, well, your check never got deposited, give us a new check. And most likely they're not going to have the money in their checkbooks. So I would expect that not to happen. I have talked to the insurance company, and their initial reading of this is not final. They were going to give a final declaration now that we have a final report. Their initial reading of it was because none of this money was embezzled. It wasn't taken. It was just never deposited and it got destroyed. Because it wasn't embezzlement, it would not be an insurance claim. And as you can see in the paper, you'll see in the paper tomorrow, there's an article from Rick. We put out a notice. We did talk to the widow of the jail administrator to let her know ahead of time that this would be coming out, and we read the language on it. And, but the document itself, we did instruct the newspaper if they wanted the report itself. That report sits with Douglas County Sheriff's Department, and they'd have to request it from there. So
Shouldn't the auditor catch something like that if it's $40,000? You know, shouldn't they, the firm that we pay to have the county audited, shouldn't they pick something like that up? It's not like it's $400, but $40,000. You think they would be able to say, hey, this is what the court ordered, this is what we got paid, it doesn't balance, what's the matter?
Yeah,
But there was no record of it coming in.
Yeah, but there's still a court order.
yeah.
So
So
court order to pay this.
as you're well aware, an audit basically takes a sample of accounts in the county. They don't look at every account. They don't look at every department even. They basically pull out a sample and say, is it reasonable that what they're reporting? Because ultimately, we're responsible for all the finances. They're just saying the finances that we report, are they more or less truthful? And they never got around to that particular account. I've been in contact with them concerning internal controls. In addition, I have tasked our fiscal consultants, Steve and Mike, which we approved the contract with them till the end of the year for $25,000 from the ARPA funds from the finance committee in the budget for that, to continue work on those 30 recommendations that they came up with. So the Department of Revenue had granted us $25,000 via WEDC because they were concerned about our finances. They came back with 30 recommendations. Now that we have those 30 recommendations and that grant is used up, we're going to be using the Department of Revenue wants us to use the ARPA funds to help them implement these policies and procedures and changes over the next 18 months. And so we're going to, Dan will be basically having a fiscal review team made up of key fiscal people around the county that will meet on a regular basis to go over that. One of the issues for the Steve and Mike consultants is they will specifically be digging into making sure the sheriff has assured me that the internal controls have been changed in the sheriff department so this doesn't happen again. They will be going through and looking at that before the auditors do to make sure that there's two eyes on all these things. So they're going to be going through that, and I'm fairly confident that that's being done correctly now.
I think that's a pretty standard disclaimer in audit contracts. Anyway.
And that's it.
Time frame are we talking about from when it started to when it ended, you know, all of this was going on?
We became aware of it in late April. And we brought in the Douglas County Sheriff's Department in late April, early May. And then they continued through this investigative processes. They got warrants, they went through some whole things. They summarized it. we just got the report last week. So,
it's just this year.
yes.
So,
Well, what they're finding is some of these deposits weren't made over the past couple, 3 years.
that's what I was getting at.
Sorry, yes, yeah, it was a couple, 3 years probably of this issue, so.
No, I didn't see the online version of the price like paper comes out tomorrow, I think it's Friday. Did Rick pretty much explain to the public that this guy didn't profit by what he did?
Yep, that's clearly spelled out here.
Yeah, that's, you know, it's like kicking under the teeth after you're dead already. You know?
So that is clearly spelled. If this committee would like to schedule a closed session meeting on the 9th of September, I'd be more than happy to go into greater detail with you in closed session if you want. But really, there's not an awful lot there. Would you like that?
If I could so ask that in that closed session, we also put discussion of personnel. Unless it's covered under state statute, because
Yep.
there's another issue we need to talk about.
Okay, closed session, investigation and personnel issues.
Right.
Yep. Okay, we'll put that down.
Anything else?
No, anything else that you guys want on that agenda for the night? That'll be your first meeting with Dan. Anything that you want him to prepare for, because he's gonna start on the 7th, so he's only gonna be here a couple days, so it's gonna be a whirlwind for him. Anything you'd like from him, or just? Okay.
Well, could he give us like a writing survey on how much he really writes? Although, to be honest, I do like the massive paperwork, because as a former paper maker.
Money in the bank.
No, I thought, you know, it's very nice to have the whole document. Yeah, you know, I'm not concerned about the amount of paper,
No,
but I'm just saying, yeah, we could tease them, but I'm just, you know.
don't say that we're cheesing him. You take it serious.
Everybody in these types of positions they do have a different philosophy. My philosophy is I'm not necessarily just writing for you.
Right.
I'm writing for the concerned citizen. And I'm also writing for the people who are gonna be sitting in my chair 5 years from now. 5 years from now, they're gonna go back and say, you guys never instituted PTO, let's say. They're gonna say, well, you know what? Where is that? Well, you know, it's online. All you gotta do back is go back and look at the packet. All that information, you'll eventually probably get to. The reason I didn't even ask for a motion on the PTO, in my talking to other county administrators, for the most part, this takes a couple of years just for people to become acceptable of doing it. Because people get nervous about it, staff they get weighted out about any change. And so I didn't ask for a motion because I wasn't expecting you to want to embrace this. I'm writing for the future is what I'm writing for.
On its face, that PTO doesn't seem like a bad idea, but there's probably problems in it.
The devils are always in the details. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to simplify your process because what I want you to do is go from paper timesheets where people enter them in to have everybody enter them into the computer. And then your pay stub it'll be approved by your supervisor. And then your PTO will be on that sheet all the time anyway. Every 2 weeks, you're gonna see, I got 8 hours of PTO this week. So that's where you're gonna go with this in the long run. And that's one of the 30 recommendations from the Mike and Steve show.
Okay, Mr. Administrator, do you have anything else?
I do not.
Next meeting date?
9th of September,
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
Here. So you're officially not done until the 9th or the 10th or?
My last day is the 10th. But I'll probably just be working a half day, going back to Stillwater that day, obviously, so.
You're all packed in and.
I'm working on it. I'm packing a bunch of stuff up. I slowly been bringing stuff back. It's amazing how much stuff you accumulate over the years.
I'm never gonna move again.
I told my wife that too.
That's it. Whatever the office-
Motion to adjourn.
I have so moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made by Bill, seconded by Marty to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
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 Adjourn.